In Europe, internet usage reaches around 68%. Around 340 million European citizens are using internet, which presents 17% of world internet users. Half of the European internet users also have one or more personal internet profiles, with 130 friends on average. The European Parliament is also present on Facebook, with over 85,000 friends.
The basic questions on the internet, of the use of the internet, or the existence of the internet, are actually coming out of the existence of the internet. Firstly, the balance between the security and the freedom, and secondly, the balance in between the creativity and to the access to the information or to the creative art. And then thirdly, which is maybe the most important, is the right to each to be informed. So whether to close the information or to give the free access to the information, what is the information, what kind of the information should be given to anybody. So the basic questions is actually to find the balance in between all these, at the present moment, still two banks on which the different sides are standing.
The European Parliament recognizes the importance of striking the right balance between the need for protection of intellectual property and the need to protect the rights of consumers. To discuss these issues, an online citizens forum was organized by European Parliament Information Office for Slovenia, European Parliament Information Office for Sweden, and Pro et Contra, Institute for Culture in Dialogue, in cooperation with Kiberpipa and Kibla.
We have to adapt to today's situation, that's for sure. We are living in a globalized world. The internet is our tool to access the information, and this is how it is today. Kids can have on iPhones today loaded downs of material illegally. However, this is the present situation. But nevertheless, I think that we should as well protect the property and authors' rights if we go a step further. Because to give for free the content of those providers, I think you don't create a positive atmosphere in the long run. You don't create that you would really assure a good quality as well in the long run of these providers of the content.
There is a conflict, but to me the fundamental freedoms are more important, because those are the core values of the European Union. And if a particular business model of a particular industry happens to be incompatible with the fundamental freedoms, well, then I'm so sorry, but that the industry has to redefine itself. I see that as one of the really great dangers of what's happening right now, is trying to get internet service providers to act as sort of policemen. That should not be the role of the internet service providers. I mean, they should provide infrastructure. I mean, we can compare it to the postal service or the telephone service. I mean, it's never been the case that the postal service was responsible for what people send in mails. It's never been the case that telephone operators were responsible for what people said on the telephone. And in the same way, it's tremendously important that we separate the responsibilities of the internet service providers. Their responsibility is to provide access to the internet, and they should not be involved in any way in censoring or checking or filtering what the users do on the internet.
Unfortunately, there is no EU legislation which would harmonize all the EU member states in that direction, but we are still debating. It's a new development for all of us. It's changing rapidly fast and we simply don't have answers, and that's why we are as well debating. We had some initiatives and resolutions even in the European Parliament concerning the protection of privacy or fight against stealing intellectual property, but these are other issues, so I think there are many answers which are still open, and we need to find the answers.
Internet users and consumers in the EU are facing various obstacles when trying to communicate or use different services online. One of the roles of the European Union is ensuring protection of all Internet users, and this duty should not be neglected. Key tasks are protection of personal data, securing privacy and enabling safety in the online world, in order to enhance trust and confidence of Internet users. One of the problems is the territoriality of the copyrights. We have 27 different member states and different approaches to copyrights, claims Engström.
How to create a common pan-European legal regulation or legal framework which will address those issues of privacy and security for European consumers. We know that different countries have different approaches, policies to those issues, and when talking about the European digital market within the Lisbon strategy, this is something that the European Union is still lacking, more or less.
I would say we would need to have a common copyright title covering all of Europe. But before we can even start working on that, we need to decide in which direction copyright should be changed.
Important issues regarding Internet in the EU are democratically oriented. How are the new Internet technologies reshaping or challenging the existing European institutions? How to strengthen citizens' participation within the European Parliament? And how to improve communication of the EU issues through new media forms like interactive social media and web-based TV channels between policymakers and voters.
Although that we have the increase of the communication channels for citizens' participation, there is still a sense that those channels are not actually oriented towards the concrete topic of the policy-making process or to influence the final outcome of what is being decided in the European Parliament.
My impression, at least from the perspective of European Parliament, is of course that in the last few years it changed dramatically. It changed quite a lot, in a sense that the institutions is really extremely open. We have, or the citizens have all the possibilities to follow online basically everything what is happening in the building. They have a direct access. We are even, I would say, pretty much advanced for most of our colleagues in the European Parliament, because we are going into the direction that as a politicians we are communicating our contents through Facebook, through Twitter. It's not anymore the press releases are in the front run. So we are really developing very modern tools and we are very open to our citizens. The other issue is, of course, the other institutions, which are sometimes problematic as well from our perspective. This is the Commission and even more the Council and the Member States, where there are still many procedures which are closed for the public and which are closed as well for the other politicians from different institutions.
Generally speaking, EU politics are too complex for a single individual, a single citizen to follow on its own. Too much is happening in too many different places, so you can't really figure it out for yourself. But what the FII proved in the fight against software patents was that an activist organization of citizens, ordinary citizens from all over Europe, working together over the internet, can understand the process and can even affect the process. Politics should be a participation sport, really. That's when it becomes fun.
In 2009, the proportion of the EU-related news in audiovisual media in member states was only 10%, whereas the proportion of news related to the USA was higher than that. Newspaper headlines do not highlight European topics, although the citizens expect to receive more information about the EU, as indicated in the European Commission 2007 report.
But it's not a question of how many channels does European Union have to communicate. It's the question of the state of mind, of European mind, among all citizens in the countries, member countries of European Union, and it's still very low. And it cannot be helped and improved by additional channels, either by Commission or by Parliament or anything else. It's more the question of, first, the question of journalists covering the work and all mechanisms of European Union, either in Brussels or elsewhere. They are covering them I should be quite self-critical about that. They are covering them in a way that it's very sort of routine and too somehow monotonous, because they rely very much on main sources of information which do not come from, let's say, from institutions, but from major, let's say, television stations, CNN or BBC or some other. And that's it. And that's the main criteria, which is wrong. And secondly, I think that basically more interest in European institutions and the working of them and improving European state of mind would be by using internet for communication, not just Brussels to individual country or anything like that, but by communicate, let's say, the citizens from Slovenia with the citizens of Estonia, or I don't know how. But it should be somehow channeled in this way, not by the channels from the institution.
It is very important to keep journalists alive and very, very taking care for them, especially to keep these correspondents which are based in Brussels to have the proper reality what is happening. And when we were discussing why European politics are not reaching as well media in our domestic countries, sometimes I was thinking it would be useful to have as well editors, and we had this chance to see how institutions are working and to understand. And I always try to appeal as well editors to keep correspondence there on the spot, because they are absolutely added value.
The online European Parliament Citizens Forum, which happened today in Ljubljana, and also online in the digital world, was a special one for several reasons. The first reason is that it was the first time that the Citizens Forum was broadcasted online globally to all internet users, and was also a discussion which was taken physically here in Ljubljana and also in Sweden. So it was a bilateral Citizens Forum trying to go over the national borders and to address some pan-European issues which are relevant for European Parliament at the moment.
Streaming of the European Parliament Citizens Forum was provided by the Institute for Electronic Participation and Studio 12. The online Citizens Forum managed to join policymakers and interested public, in real as well as in virtual space, from different member states, to a common pan-European discussion.
I think this is what makes this Citizens Forum, online Citizens Forum in 2010 unique and one of historical example for any other Citizens Forums in the future.